but like I said, I stand by my results.
Okay, so here's the action coming out. Lovely.
There we go. Now, if you do this at home, please be sure you don't push any keys down when you pull the action out, because you'll break off hammers. They'll get caught on the underside of the edge of the pin block and snap off they'll go. Then you will gnash your teeth, and don't blame me. Now, it's fairly easy just for you to see the end. This is a very highly evolved device, probably the most complex mechanism that's mostly composed of wood. Quite mysterious to most people. So as you depress a key, now the key is just a simple lever. Okay, it's got a central balancing point that also functions as a guide pin. There's also a guide pin at the front. As the key goes down, that engages this item here called a whippin.
A whippin.
A whippin. Well, this is actually the jack tender or tail, but that's part of the whippin assembly. So as you depress the key, that pushes up the whippin, and this is called a roller. Or it used to be called a knuckle. At least the old geezer that taught me used to do that. Now, this little item here, this little peg, I'm going to call it that way, is called a jack. That's what actually pushes the hammer up. Now, without the hammer in place, you'll see that this whipping comes up. This is called a repetition lever here. As the whipping rises, the jack maintains its position until it engages a button called a regulating button.
Where is that?
Right there.
Oh, right there. Okay. Yeah, it's quite
and
high.
that catches the jack tender and causes the jack to move away from
so the roller bounces it off, and then that makes the hammer strike.
Yeah, the whipping moves up. The jack is propelling this forward, upward I should say, be forward in a vertical piano. And then at a certain point the jack kicks out from underneath.
That's the escapement,
roller.
right?
That's the escapement, yeah. Otherwise, what would happen, if you had this regulating button set too high, then the hammer would just block against the string.
And that is what Glenn Gould did with his piano.
Yes, indeed. A very peculiar thing that he would do that. The amount of control he must have had would be
amazing.
I can hardly imagine. So in a nutshell, that's how a grand action functions. Now, after the hammer hits the string, which would be, see, the string is about 1 7/8 inch higher than the hammer at its rest position. And in the treble, your very extreme position, it would be very close to the hammer as it lets off. That gives you the maximum
And then just drops
power.
right back off.
Now, when the jack kicks out,
Boom.
the hammer comes back down on the repetition lever, and it only is allowed to fall so far. And then when you let up in the key, if this thing is regulated correctly,
Boing.
see, I let up in the key a little bit, and up the hammer goes, and that allows the jack to get back underneath again, so that you can play very, very rapidly, very rapid repetition.
Oh, and yeah, I know they don't have the same quality on uprights as they do on.
If they're well regulated and it's a good full-size action, the repetition on an upright really leaves very little to be desired, and for most purposes, really, it's more than fast enough. You know, when I finish tuning an upright piano and regulating it, I can easily get that kind of repetition. So when you take a trill, you think, well, that's fast repetition, but really, I'm only playing each key about that fast. I can actually go about twice that fast, eh?
Yeah.
But it's very, very few pieces. I can think of some fragments of Scriabin sonatas where he's playing repeated notes on a key that fast.
Yeah.
And a little bit of Scarlatti too. I recollect a Scarlatti sonata. Or
Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody too has, in the middle section, there's a fast repeated section there.
Yeah, but there's really, that's because he's trying to simulate a hammered dulcimer, which is called a cimbalom in Hungary, I believe, and they play those with little hammers. They play. It's almost like a combination of percussion technique and keyboard technique. Anyway, yeah. So very, very briefly, that's how a piano mechanism works.
Cool.
Yep. Okay, so we're back again, and I've finished setting the temperament. Actually, what I do is I set the temperament across as much of the piano as I can. I don't just confine it to the middle. So what I'm doing now, I'm going down octave by octave, but I'm using mostly major thirds to check the intervals. So if you can listen very carefully, you hear the speed of that one, the speed of that one. You'll notice they get gradually slower as it goes down the scale. That shows that I have the right ratio of out-of-tuneness for all of them. Now here, this is where inharmonicity is starting to rear its ugly head, because
yeah, I can hear that.
In this partial, I don't know if you can hear that, that has one beat, but this one has another altogether. So there's actually two sets of beats that are quite audible, and there's actually even more than that in the mix, but these are the two main ones. So we have a very slow one, but then also another one. About that fast. And the upper one, you can hear it's actually it's slightly more than double the speed of the lower one. So it kind of outstrips itself, which when you listen to it, it gets pretty confounding. You just have to work through it. Small vertical pianos can be a lot worse than that. But that's just part of the tone code of the piano. So I just focus on it. Okay, is the sixth okay? Is the third okay? And so forth. Now I will say this piano is it's a relatively short one. Generally you need probably at least about a 6'3" grand before you get the string length such and the scale design such that the problems of inharmonicity are starting to get minimized. By the time you get to a 9-foot concert grand, there will still be inharmonicity, but you should be able to hang a pretty smooth tuning on it where all the beat rates work out fairly close to what they should be theoretically. Just as an interesting aside, you'll note that the strings have quite different diameters to them. Now, if you were to start with the optimum gauge of wire and use that same wire across the whole span of the piano, that would reduce your inharmonicity because you'd be using the same diameter wire for everything. However, in order to produce these low tones, that piano would wind up being about 70 feet long, which would be how many meters? Well, in excess of 20 meters, so hard to be practical. So the piano essentially is very much a compromise, a very sophisticated and highly evolved compromise, but a compromise nonetheless. So I'll carry on because I have other work to do. Andrew here, he ambushed me when I came in. I had no idea this was going to happen. He said, "Do you want to be on YouTube?" So why not?
Yeah, people like that.
You never know. I might get some snarky piano technician right and say you're a miserable hack and you should do it this way. But that's okay because piano technicians are the most pig-headed and opinionated lot that I've ever come across.
Well,
so I just do what I do and I stand by my results, and I'm here to set a musical standard and it seems to suit most everybody, so there you go.
There you go. Hey, if you weren't good, I wouldn't have you here.
Okay, that was not quite right. Has got very little beat to it, so I'm going to knock that one down just a hair. Now you remember that all your fifths are flat, all your fourths are sharp. Now here's another test. Those should have the same. They should be the same speed. Which one is faster?
The lower one.
Yes, very marginally.
Ha! I'm catching on. Sorry.
Still a bit faster, right? Still a bit faster. I am in the right pin, yes indeed. It's a new piano, it's still really tight, quite cranky.
Just like skates. When you get new skates, they're so tight and they're uncomfortable.
So how is it? Now you notice. Now that wound up a bit faster. See, this piano is also on the sharp side down here, and I find that can make them very pesky. Because it's one thing to get them to gain tension, it's another to try to get them to lose tension. Anyway, our time is a bit limited here. Andrew did want me to give you an exposition as to why you should get your piano tuned. Because first of all, it will sound good. You should develop an educated ear, definitely. A singer, they have quite a bit of conscious control over their voice. A guitarist, a violinist, etc., they have quite a bit of control over their tone. A pianist is utterly dependent on the instrument and the condition of the instrument to sound good. If your piano is out of tune, it's just not going to sound as good. You want to have, it's like a chaotic musical universe, and by chaotic I don't mean disordered. It actually has its own marvelous disorder, but it in itself it's like a little pocket universe. When it's in tune, the sonorities that come out of it will be most excellent and gratifying to the soul. Now, physical reasons why you should keep your piano in tune is because, as I said, the whole thing is under close to 20 tons of tension. The wire that is used in the strings, it's very, pardon me, it's a very springy wire. Now, a wire that's used to make springs, in a sense, it has a memory. It has to be able to have a memory so it will retain its position. Piano wire is similar to a spring in that sense. Now, it's quite possible for your piano to memorize being out of tune. You notice all these sharp kinks that it has to go across. The piano will memorize that position. If you leave your piano out of tune for lengthy periods of time, it becomes accustomed to have that bend in that spot. Okay? And it will be accustomed to having that bend in that spot, so forth and so on. It gets accustomed, it memorizes its position. Now, when the piano is tuned and tuned and tuned and tuned in the factory, they do their most to get it in tune, but for the first few years, the strings are still going to tend to relax, and if in that interval you keep your piano very close to pitch or right bang on pitch, eventually it will become accustomed to being in tune. Now, when I come across a piano that is, say, half a tone flat, so when I hit this A, I actually hear A flat, or in a bad case, G, and actually the worst I've ever seen is when I played this A and I heard that C.
Oh.
That was horrible.
Oh, man.
Horrible. That was an English birdcage piano from the 1860s. I was absolutely shocked, especially since it was a very prosperous individual that owned this piano. But yes, so please keep your piano tuned regularly. If you're wondering who to get, you could, if there's anybody in your area that belongs to the Piano Technicians Piano Technicians Guild, or here in Canada there's also the Canadian Association of Piano Technicians, give them a dingle. They will at least have passed certain minimum rudimentary tests to have shown that they're at a certain level of expertise. There's lots of guys around that have not passed those tests, especially in countries other than North American or Central American countries. I imagine in Germany and Austria, for example, they would have a whole different type of guild. Well, it would be a similar type of guild, but going by a different name. I don't know what they would be. Same thing in England. There's probably some organization whereby people can take tests. But please keep your piano in tune, because when the piano tuner comes and he finds that it's a half tone flat, he can tune it all right, but it's going to try to go back to the position of out of tuneness that the piano has memorized. So if your piano hasn't been tuned for 10 years, you should probably get it done every, I don't know, 6 months, no longer than a year, until it's finally stabilized. Piano manufacturers used to recommend a piano be tuned every change of season, which in this climate is about 6 times a year. Realistically, that's not really that practical. Get them done at least once a year. Once every 8 months or so is okay. I find in this climate here, I prefer not to really tune too many pianos in August. There's something about it. They tend to be sharp, and as I say, it's very irksome to try to get the piano to lose tension rather than gain it. Because it's really tough to get the string to relax to that point. So that's what I'm finding with this one. As I'm tuning the tenor section, it's quite sharp, and I'm getting things down so the beat rate is right, then I go back and check it, and it's actually risen up a bit. Even though I've gone way past the point and tried to knock it down and bring it back up again, it just
going crazy everywhere.
Goes up.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to deal with, right?
Okay.
Nothing is perfect. So thanks very much, folks. Hope I've been, I hope I've created some light and not heat here. It's a large question, a large subject. Hopefully you learned something. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks. Okay, you heard it. That was good, huh? Anyway, take care.